It started with the usual. Waking up in different places on smaller scales. Fall asleep on the couch, wake up in my bed. "Oh Randy, I was the same way at your age," my mother used to say, with smiles and turnaways that marked the end of discussion. Sometimes I thought it was my parents, but to what motivation would they do this? When I'm soundly in my bed, pick me up and lay me gently on the kitchen floor. No. This was me. It was around when I was 16 that they started to see it. My older sister Anne, 18 at the time, would be dozing by the TV when I'd saunter in and so very purposely sit beside her. Sometimes she thought I was awake, only to have me not recall it the next day. Then the talking started. I'd walk into her room one late summer night, while she's up on her computer and stare blankly at her. She'd question me, and I'd answer yes to every question. Open-ended and all. "Ran, you okay?" "Yes." "What's going on?" "Yes." Sometimes she'd find me in places, usually asleep. On several occasions her walk-in closet. She'd yell at me and throw me out saying, "Even with your fucking narcolepsy or whatever, that's private." She was a very reserved person, and I always respected that in my waking life, even after she moved out. But it was all different asleep. Nothing was relevant, and none of it mattered. I'd tried everything. For a while I'd slept in a sleeping bag, zipped to the neck, with mittens. It never really worked. And I was beginning to wake up in stranger and stranger places. Granted, I never went too far from home, but it was becoming a regular thing that I'd wake up outside. Forests, streets. I was sleepless for days at a time and it made me delusional, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be normal. My best friend, Darren, was very supportive, always calming me down when I was so sleep-deprived I felt like my mind would implode. He'd coax me to sleep and promise to watch me, and for the most part, he did. Sometimes I'd wake up to little notes from him. Little affirmations, like, "Everything will be okay, Darren." I'd find these notes in the cracks and rifts of my home, folded neatly and creased tight. Telling me it's okay. Darren and I didn't always get along, though. Sometimes we'd fight, and he'd leave. The guy had a lot of problems, maybe some form of manic depression. That's when I'd find the malicious notes. The notes that told me to fuck off and get over myself, which eventually progressed into darker territory. I'd find them around and it was as if they'd interact with me. "Nobody loves you, all you do is destroy, Darren. But I try so hard to be good." I'd think to myself. "And every time you try, you fail, Darren. I'm so sorry." I'd whisper faintly. "Kill yourself, Darren." I should have just stopped hanging out with him, but he was all I had, then he'd leave me cold. I'd wake up in the dirt under cold sweat, with blood on my hands that I stole from myself in my slumber. "This is why you're worthless, Darren." Annie was leaving soon. Going off to college. Over the course of a week her room faded to emptiness as she took all her things to her dorm, and then only she was left. She said she'd be out in a week. It had been months since I'd gotten a note from Darren. He hadn't been over to supply them. I was happy. Alone, but happy. He couldn't bother me anymore. And the night before Annie left, I went to sleep happy. I dreamt of beautiful things. Waterfalls and meadows, places where everything was in its right place. That time I woke up midday. No cars in the driveway, nothing too unusual, but my room was distraught. Dents in my wardrobe and a door off its hinges. Must have been a crazy night, but at least I was still in my bed. I went down the hall to check if Annie was still there. She never said when she was leaving. Her room was empty as usual, but something was off this time. Her closet was open a crack. She never left her closet open, not even the slightest bit. It was her private zone, her sanctuary. That's when I saw the little drops on the floor. Smeared like crimson pastels, like someone had gone over to spread them. I followed them to the closet. Looking down the whole way. I reached the door and wrapped my fingers around the edge. Slowly pushing forward. And there she was. Mangled and beaten. The veins in her neck torn out. The carpet was no longer off-white and dry, but moist and crimson. It was as if she were mauled by an animal. And I saw it. A little note on her chest, folded with the care and precision Darren had always prided himself on. But the signature was different. And then it hit me, clear as day. Like waves of clarity but still somehow topped with disbelief. It wasn't Darren. It was never Darren. I squeezed my eyes shut as I declared it to myself. I opened my lids as I read the note one last time, glazed eyes and trembling fingers. Everything will be okay. Randy. As you're eating dinner, watching reruns on TV, they're watching. As you sit on your computer late at night, they're watching. When you walk from your bedroom to the bathroom late at night, you can be certain that they're watching. They watch everything you do. They listen to every little sound you make. They're with you every second of the day, and every day of the year. Who are they, you may ask? Well, it's not so much a question of who they are, but what they are. For the lack of a better name, I simply call them watchers. Everybody has one, and you've likely already seen yours countless times. It's in the room with you right this second. Take a quick glance all around you. Chances are, your eyes connected with the eyes of your watcher. Oh, but don't bother looking again, they can't be seen by normal people. We're programmed not to take any notice of them. They could be anywhere, though. Hiding behind chairs in your dining room, watching you from atop your refrigerator, staring at you from underneath your desk as you do work, peeping at you from the end of your bed as you sleep. Some people are chosen, however. Chosen to be the few unfortunate bunch that get to see their watcher. I am one of these unlucky few. They're never fully exposed, but the sight of one is a sight to pity. They're almost always hunched over in fetal position, their small, pale, bony body looking as if it would be crushed under the weight of its large head. They have large black, soulless eyes that are always staring right into yours. Always watching you, judging you. It starts slow, being able to see them. In the course of a few weeks, you'll begin to see small movements in your peripheral vision. You will throw these occurrences off as normal, well, until the noises begin. The noises gradually get more and more defined over 2 or 3 weeks. In my experience, it was the slow padding of feet shuffling across my hardwood floor as I was trying to sleep. Then I begun to hear it graze the shower curtains as I shampooed my hair. Finally, I could hear it whispering to me when I was alone in a language I had never heard before. For weeks, I thought that I was crazy. For weeks, I considered checking myself into a mental hospital. For weeks, I felt like killing myself. That is, until I finally saw it. It was about a year and a half ago, and I was reading Robert Stevenson's novel, Treasure Island. As usual, I heard the slow patter on the floor coming from the furthest corner of my room to the end of my bed. Annoyed, I looked up, expecting the usual nothingness that I was used to seeing for the past months. When I looked up, it was the same sight I was used to seeing. There was, however, something about this sight that made me feel uneasy. Finally, I noticed it staring at me from between the bars at the end of my bed. I could just see the outline of its head in the dark of the night. I quickly looked back at my book, acting as if I hadn't seen it in hope that it would just go away. I sat there paralyzed for what seemed like half an hour before I looked up again. It was still there staring at me. Looking at me. Watching me. You have likely had this same experience. The difference is that you don't notice it watching you. You're not supposed to notice it. It doesn't want to be noticed. After a few days I began seeing it everywhere. Looking up at me from under the table while I ate dinner, in passing cars on my way to work, my watcher appeared everywhere. I scream at it to go away, but it just stares at me. I throw things at it, but it doesn't move. My girlfriend and friends all left me because they thought I was acting psychotic. My family keeps telling me that they can help me, but I don't need help. I just need to stare back, and it'll go away. I rarely move anymore. I figure that if I bore it, it'll finally leave. I'll just have to sit here and watch it. I'm always watching it. I used to live in New Jersey in an old Victorian, right in the smack dab middle of the boonies. Where I lived, cell phones rarely get reception. Back a few decades ago, when I was a kid, a housing development went up. Big places. They cleared a few miles of the barrens for it. It was a stone's throw from my place. Once the places were finished, people moved in. City people, really. It was either old people or new families with real young kids. People that wanted to either wind their life down or start a new one up. Nothing special. I knew a handful of the kids through elementary school, but none of them were exactly my age. They were normal. When the people moved in, my mom made an effort to meet everyone, with us being so close and all. There was one guy that stuck out in my mind, mainly because he was bald, yet young. Probably 38 at the oldest, I want to say. My mom said not to say anything because he might have a disease or something like that. Years went by. I grew up and went into middle school. I came home one day. I had to walk because I missed all the buses. I went past the housing development. Glancing down the street, I didn't see anyone. Not a soul. It was around 5:20, according to my watch, if I remember right. Normally, all the fathers were getting home at 5:00-ish. Curiosity got me. I walked down the street to see what I could see. Every house was dark, except for the bald man's. I glanced in his window, and saw about the entire population of the small community sitting in his living room. Children, parents, the elderly. Everyone. Standing in the middle of everything was the bald man. It seemed as though it was just a casual meeting. People were talking and laughing. Whatever. I didn't know why the hell I cared anyway. I walked home and got grounded for being late and not calling from the school. That night my mom got a call from another local neighbor, saying that she was hearing unsettling grinding noises from the small community. My mom said that someone was probably getting work done. When she asked me if I had seen anything on my way home, I didn't answer, as I was still bitter that she had grounded me in the first place. The next day, every kid from that small neighborhood was marked absent in school. And the day after that. The police went to investigate that night. The first thing they found was an ear on the front lawn of the bald man's house. A severed, human ear. A child's arm was found, a trash can, dumped with a few empty pizza boxes, and a man's split-open torso was located in the woods behind the property, with human bite marks penetrating the flesh. The rest of the community was inside the house. All the entrances, both doors and windows, were boarded shut. When they broke down the door, they found the corpses of everyone, the entire development's population. Children, parents, the elderly. Everyone. Some were mutilated beyond initial recognition, and most were missing organs like livers and kidneys. Forensics showed that the victims were alive and the organs were taken out. A child's body was also found in the oven of the house, burnt to the point where the skin melted. Forensics showed that the child was alive when his skin started to melt. Children, parents, the elderly. Everyone. Everyone. Everyone except for the bald man. A background search on him proved that he was involved in a local sect of the occult, which are known to practice in the Pine Barrens. He fled. He hasn't been found. Needless to say, what happened literally tore our community apart in multiple ways. Instead of the boogeyman, my friends and I had nightmares about something real, about a bald man. Horror movies didn't scare me because I knew they were fake. What happened was real, and that terrifies me to this day. The massacre occurred in 1984, 28 years ago. I'm 41 now. I went back to the site last month. The houses are still standing. All of them are abandoned. The single road that once connected the community to the outside world is long overgrown. I can't find any police files. Nor can I find any news broadcasts about the murders. The houses are still there, but everything that had to do with that place seems to be gone. I could spend hours telling all the urban legends I've heard about it. Weird NJ posted a story in their book, I think. Nothing's conclusive. No newspapers. No files. I searched the records of some of the children from my school. They were never legally documented. But I know. And every other person that witnessed it and lived in West Milford County in 1984 knows. I cannot, in any way, express to you how much the events that I've described have literally ruined my life. If you doubt the reality of it, the only thing I can say is that you're wrong. This happened. This isn't meant to be a creepypasta, and this isn't an urban legend. The only reason I've posted it here is because I know that this is a community that will actually read what I'm writing. I'm not sure what I can say to make you believe. But a total of 37 people were murdered in the most brutal ways I can imagine. The place has a lot of names. It used to be called New City Village. Now it's called Demon's Alley. Look it up for yourself if you don't believe me. People need to know about this. For all it's worth, please share this.